Birds. Birds have been designed for flight. And we're going to look at two things, the skeletal system and the muscular system, and how they work together to keep the bird in the air. One of the things you are already aware of is the bones are different in a bird. Instead of the thick marrow that produces blood in a human's bone, a bird's bone has large air pockets that are supported by reinforcing struts or garters, similar to what can be used to hold up like the roof of a building. This gives the bird's bone strength while also keeping it light. You guys have heard that if you take a large bird like an eagle and you take the bones of a bird and the feathers of the bird and you compare the weight, actually the feathers weigh more than the bird's bones do. Some of the most important bones to discuss is in its skeletal system. One of the ones I want you guys to notice is its chest bone. We're going to use a lot of the same words for a bird that we use for when we're describing the different bones of your skeleton. So you'll notice some similarities in the words, and they'll help you know what the function is of each of these bones. The first one to talk about is the sternum. Our chest bone is where our ribs connect, and it's the same with this bird. Birds have the sternum that is shaped a little bit different than other animals. It is a very large bone. It's kind of shaped long and flat like the keel of a boat. Its use is to keep the muscles with a good anchor point. The muscles that we're going to discuss need a place that is strong to connect to, and that's going to be the sternum. Some of the other bones to notice are the ulna and the radius, which are going to give support to the wings, as well as the humerus, are also going to be shaped a little bit differently than a person's in length, and they are going to support the wings. Instead of phalanges, they have specialized bones on the tip. Some of these are going to hold up a specific part of the feathers called the alula. The alula is the part that's going to help the bird in flight, and they are retractable, and they're able to use it to direct their flight while they fly. So the alula is not shown here in the picture, but it'd be the group of feathers right here at the end that a bird can change the direction of. Outside of just the bones, let's look at some of those muscles that we just discussed. The first one was the pectoralis. These connect to the sternum, and there's two sets of them. You can't really see it well in this picture here, but the pectoralis is going to be responsible for the wings being able to move up and down for the powerful flight motion of your bird. If you've ever helped your mom cut up a rotisserie chicken for dinner, you're going to be able to see both the bone, the sternum, and the pectoralis muscles. When you eat chicken, you're probably going to be eating the breastbone if you like the white meat. It's a very strong, powerful muscle in a bird. Now, outside of those, it has to be able to use the muscles, and we're going to find that in the nervous system. We have two hemispheres in our cerebrum, and so does a bird. The bird's cerebrum is smooth, though. Instead of that like bumpy brain look that we get for a human's brain, it's smooth on the surface. The part that coordinates the motion is the cerebellum. The cerebellum of a bird is a little bit larger than the rest of its brain, which is not the same as in the same ratio as it is in a mammal. It's responsible for its muscle coordination and processing sensory messages it receives from around it. Now, those are just a few of the major parts of a bird. Obviously, there's a lot more. We could have sat here and talked forever about all the parts of the skeleton, all the parts of the muscle, but luckily, we don't have to know all of them. That was just the sternum, the radius, ulna, humerus, and the pectoralis muscles. Some of the other things about a bird, though, are going to give it its advantage. With a bird, its beak is going to be unique. Each of the different types of birds have something different that they eat, and they have beaks that help them get that food. If it has a big, large beak, it could be wide and strong, used to crack open seeds, or it could be long and narrow, meant to go into holes chasing after insects or after fish in the water. There's even specialized ones, like for the flamingo, which has a strainer at the bottom, so it can get its food and get the water out of it. A bird's beak is made up of a protein called keratin. Just like your fingernails, keratin is a strong protein. With our bird, we're going to also look at Some of the things that have to do with its senses. It is not the same as all the other ones. Its nervous system has something that's unique. The bird's sense of smell and taste is very poor. A bird does not need to smell. Have you ever seen a bird sniffing? A bird also doesn't really focus on taste as much. Those are weaker senses, but it does have very powerful hearing. The bird's ears are located along the side, a little bit below its eyes, and it is actually able to notice and hear fluctuation in pitch much better than a person. We can hear our highs and our lows, but a bird needs to notice it even more. It needs to be able to recognize the difference between the different calls of the different birds around it, and it uses that to understand it, and then that message goes back to the cerebellum in the brain. A bird also has very powerful eyesight. The eyes of a bird can see a lot around it. They're very powerful eyes. They have a couple things that make them a little bit different. One of the things that makes them unique is a nictitating membrane. It's a third eyelid. This nictitating membrane goes across their eyes and basically acts as blinking, but it is see-through, so they never have a second where they don't see what's around them and they can stay alert. They also have very powerful eyesight. They can focus in on objects very far away, kind of like a fine-tuned camera. They can also see color, sometimes even better than people. So they are unique in their eyes. They probably have the best eyes out of any creature in the world. So now that we know how a bird can fly and its senses, I'm going to flip over to this one again, and we're going to talk about a bird's feathers. The bird's feathers come in many varieties, and they have different purposes. The feathers of a bird are going to be used for flight, as well as to keep them warm, and there are many different types. Its wing feathers have the parts that we've discussed earlier with those barbs. These barbs are going to be used as kind of like Velcro to keep the bird's wings smooth, and the birds with their beaks preen, and they can put all of that back in a spot. Then there are other ones, like the other one I'm going to focus on, the down feather. And you've already seen this before, but your down feather is going to be used to keep the bird warm in the winter and give it that extra little bit. Birds do molt during warm weather, and they lose some of those down feathers. Sometimes you can get pillows that are made out of down feather and coats, and they are extra warm. So with all the different types of bird feathers that we have, the three main categories that we discuss is our contour feathers, which give it the shape, give the bird its outline. Its flight feathers, which include the tail and the wing feathers together. Those are going to be used for flight. And then the down feathers, which are your semi-plume and down, and they again are to keep them warm. Now, as a bird flies, it does have to worry about one other aspect of weight. While its muscles weigh, the food that it eats is also part of the weight. So when a bird is eating, it has to digest its food very quickly. It has a very quick digestion. In its digestive tract, there are a couple parts that are different than us. One of the parts is the crop. The crop is an oral cavity in a bird that is used for digestion. It is a storage chamber, and it will release the food into the digestive system at a proper rate. From there, it's going to go on to its stomach. The stomach has a specific part that is called the gizzard. The gizzard is not a lizard, but it is a very muscular part and is used to grind up the food instead of having teeth. So the food that comes in must be broken down, and it does that in the gizzard. From there, it will move into the rest of the digestive tract. Now, a bird does do something a little gross. While they fly, they do not have the ability to hold it and make it to the bathroom later. As they eat and as they drink, it is just once the digestion is finished, it just comes out the other end. They do not have that ability to hold it. With the excretory system, it's specifically there to keep up the speed, to get it out of their body as quick as possible. Birds also in the sorry, I lost the word, marine, if they're by the water. They also have to be able to contend with the salt. Some birds have something called a salt gland above each eye, and these are going to help them remove the seawater that comes in their diet. So that would be in the gland section. It's going to be up there by their eye. Right there, won't let me click on it. So that is that part. We're going to pause right there, and there will be another video another day about the respiratory system of a bird, but that at least gives you a couple main things. We discussed a lot. We discussed the skeletons. We discussed the muscle system. We also looked at the different types of feathers, and then we came back around to the digestive system of our bird.